of a police officer. And unfortunately, the storming of the Capitol Hill showed us how just true that is. The business model of online platforms has an impact, and not only on free and fair competition, but also on our democracies, our security, and on the quality of our information. And that is why we need to contain this immense power of the big digital companies, because we want the values we cherish in the offline world also to be respected online. And at its most basic, this means that what is illegal offline should be illegal online too. And we want the platforms to be transparent about how their algorithms work, because we cannot accept that decisions that have a far-reaching impact on our democracy are taken by computer programs alone. We want it clearly laid down that internet companies take responsibility for the manner in which they disseminate, promote, and remove content. And no matter how tempting it may have been for Twitter to switch off President Trump's account, such serious interference with freedom of expression should not be based on company rules alone. There needs to be a framework of laws for such far-reaching decisions. And this is why the Commission launched the Digital Services Act and the Digital Market Act in December. This is our new rule book for our digital market. And I want to invite our friends in the United States to join our initiatives. Together, we could create a digital economy rule book that is valid worldwide. It goes from data protection and privacy to the security of critical infrastructure. A body of rules based on our values, human rights and pluralism, inclusion, and the protection of privacy. So Europe stands ready. The challenges to our democracy, the pandemic, climate change. In his inauguration speech, President Joe Biden so aptly spoke of a cascade of crises. And indeed, we face an outstanding set of challenges. But we can meet them if we work together. And that's what we all have to learn again after 4 long years. That it is not a sign of weakness to reach out and help each other, but a signal of strength. And this spirit of cooperation is the only mindset which can help us tackle our challenges. The pandemic has shown the limitations of some of our old ways of working, but it has also created new ones in record time. So take the vaccine that will hopefully protect us all from COVID-19. What normally takes 5 to 10 years to develop a vaccine was achieved in 10 months because the world pooled its resources, scientists shared their expertise, and different manufacturers worked together. The European Union and others helped with money. Large sums were invested to build research capacities and production facilities early. Europe invested billions to help develop the world's first COVID-19 vaccines, to create a truly global common good. And now the companies must deliver. They must honor their obligations. And this is why we will set up a vaccine export transparency mechanism. Europe is determined to contribute to this global common good, but it also means business. And this is also why early in the pandemic, the European Union, together with organizations like the World Economic Forum or the Gates Foundation and Global Citizen, organized pledging initiatives to mobilize funding for the global coronavirus response. In the COVAX Vaccination Alliance, the European Union, together with 186 countries, will be securing millions of doses of vaccines for low-income countries. The point is that it is only by working together across borders and across sectors that we can tackle our global challenges. No private company or public authority can do it alone. And this is why I believe this new form of blended partnership should prepare and protect us against the next big risk. This is a blueprint for cooperation in today's world. We need to bring together the innovation and the capability of the private sector, and the long-term vision and predictability and the funding of the public sector. It is in this spirit that Europe will propose to create a biodefense preparedness program. This will be a public-private partnership with European Health Emergency Response Authority, or in short, HERA. This new program, it will be proactive. We cannot wait for the next pandemic to start preparing. So this new program will be permanent, and it will be fully dedicated to discovering and preparing for known and emergent pathogens, and then developing and manufacturing vaccines at scale to respond to them. Second, it would secure long-term and predictable funding for this task, rather than reallocating resources every time. And third, it would bring together cutting-edge tech companies, blue-chip manufacturers, as well as regulators such as the European Medicine Agencies or the European Commission. We know that preparedness is everything. And we know that in a pandemic, there's no time to lose. We need this new public-private approach to detect earlier, develop together, and manufacture faster at scale. And this is not just true for pandemics or health, it is true for all major societal challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, from the protection of our democracy to the protection of our nature, Europe has everything to win from this new form of international and sectoral cooperation. And we will reach out to our partners from around the world, from foundations to global institutions, from CEOs to NGOs, and from our oldest partners across the Atlantic to all those who want to join. New alliances for new solutions. This is what we will work for. And I know I can count on you and the World Economic Forum to help us build it. I hope to be able to continue this discussion with you soon. For example, Klaus, when we meet hopefully in person at the special annual meeting in Singapore in May. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Europe, as you tell us and as we see, is really taking the lead in the great reset effort which we need in order to shape our future in a more resilient, in a more inclusive, and in a more sustainable way. I think we all were impressed because it was news for me to hear what you are doing to prepare for the next virus, which certainly will hunt us if we are not sufficiently prepared for it. And also what Europe is doing in terms of the distribution of vaccines. I just want to quote yesterday Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who said, as long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will feel safe. Of course, you're mentioning the restoration of the ecosystem as a key priority and taking care of our planet in general I can assure you with this program, with this virtual program, about 1/3 of the sessions are devoted to nature. And here I want to highlight particularly our 1 trillion trees initiative to help and to create a coalition around the world to plant 1 trillion trees in this decade. But what is essential is that business does not engage just in terms of a charity mentality. I think business today is part, as governments are, of our society and has to work in public-private partnerships really to address all those issues. And here, Ursula, I'm very pleased to say you mentioned the role of the EU in creating the necessary standards. We will announce today, early this afternoon, that companies representing several millions of employees commit to a first beginning, if I may say so, of standards, ESG standards, which can be compared and where companies really can be measured according to their performance, not only in financial terms, but what they really do for the planet and for the people. I have one question which probably is in the mind of many business leaders. When we look, and it's a very practical question, when we looked at the next generation EU and financed by the EU budget with 1.8 trillion, and the objective is clearly to help companies to transit to climate neutrality by 2050, hopefully even earlier. But how is the practical link between this huge amount and what business are doing? How do you really translate this financial resource into practical business action?
Yes. Klaus, first of all, the principle there is on one part the European budget, and on the other part there are national recovery plans that are guided by our overarching principles, for example, the investment in the European Green Deal. And let's go to the principles in which we invest. This is at the beginning, innovation. Innovation, we invest in innovation that is tailor-made innovation to fight climate change, because this is the approach we think is the right one, that it's our new growth strategy to move towards sustainable, clean production ways in a circular economy. The second point is interesting because you mentioned your initiative this afternoon. This is very interesting for us. The second point is that indeed private capital is looking for sustainable solution to invest in, or sustainable projects, green projects. And therefore, we think it's important to create a framework for investment, and by this, to steer the private capital to innovation and green projects. And we do this in two ways. First of all, we issue green bonds. So the capital raised at the market for Next Generation EU, a certain amount is issued or is raised by issuing green bonds. And we are right now developing a taxonomy that is a standard for green projects. And that's a framework for investment that would help investors who want to know whether a project is sustainable or whether it's more or less greenwashing, or whether it does potentially even harm to the environment. And to help them with this taxonomy is a framework that gives guidance. Then, indeed, the third point is carbon needs a price to send a clear market signal. So we do that through the emission trading system, which will be widened in Europe. And to protect the innovation, because innovation at the beginning is not always competitive. We develop a carbon border adjustment mechanism so that we can be sure that the innovation competes on the quality and does not compete with carbon heavy other old production ways. And the fourth is, of course, the big issue. That's investment. Investment through Next Generation EU. And there are myriad ways how business can benefit from Next Generation EU. Perhaps just very briefly, 3 examples. One example is we want to start a European renovation wave, because we know that buildings are responsible for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. So this is why we have set our goal to renovate in the European Union 35 million houses in the next 10 years. And when you think about renovation, we talk about nature-based solutions, climate-friendly material, so all the innovative material you can use for that, and it will be a strong incentive for the construction sector, but it will also, of course, lower the costs for people who rent an apartment, for example, what energy is concerned. So a cycle that is very successful. Another example would be clean urban mobility for cities. So we support cities who want to decarbonize their fleets of buses, for example, choosing clean energy sources. And the third example of many others is hydrogen. We will create new European hydrogen valleys. And the investment in hydrogen will have priority in Next Generation EU, because hydrogen is a very good example to demonstrate on how we work together with the private sector. So we have launched a European Clean Hydrogen Alliance. Over 1,000 companies have joined so far. And with this alliance, we want to look at the entire hydrogen value chain. So from the production to the distribution, and work on supply as well as on demand. And thus we synchronize the investments, bringing together the demand and the supply side at European scale, cross-border European scale. So the principle here with this investment is, when we manage to join forces, that's the point when we see Europe at its best. And that is basically the essence of our single market. And this is how we think we should move out of the Corona world and shape our future.
Thank you very much, Ursula. When I coined the expression reset and the Great Reset and wrote the book, many people asked me, what does it really mean in practice? In the future, I can say, listen to the speech of the President of the European Commission of today. I just want to highlight, in coming back to your speech, one very important element. We talked a lot about nature, but I think what you said about a values-based social governance system related to the utilization of the internet and all digital capabilities, I think that's also a very important point in your speech. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in Singapore when we have end of May, and wishing you in the meantime, particularly in fighting, or wishing us all, particularly in fighting this virus, great progress and hopefully victory. Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Madam President.